Media Talks, the podcast that helps to better understand the world of media and video advertising.
All right, hello and welcome to all our Media Talk listeners. I have to say it's hard to believe, but that's already we're celebrating the second year of our Media Talk podcast. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to all our listeners for following us and tuning in on a regular basis. And today I'm privileged to welcome Jon Lewis, Head of Commercial Innovation and Partners at Channel 4. Jon, hello.
Hello, Manu. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Jon, I don't think you need to be, you're probably quite well known in the industry, but for those who do not know you, could you just give a quick intro about you and your role at Channel 4?
Yeah, so I've been at Channel 4 over 11 years now and done a couple of different roles during that time. But I suppose most recently in the last 18 months, my job really is to, I talked about this the other day, almost experiment really, and find new ways of innovating, creating new revenue streams, be that within our core business, on our streaming platform, or also other areas where we might find opportunities that are adjacent to what we do. So one of the other sort of emerging areas is e-commerce. So I've been doing that probably just over a year, 18 months now. I think one of the things that we're going to talk about today is what we've been experimenting with in relation to our streaming experience, particularly around the advertising experience.
This is really sort of a topic I really wanted to tackle today. And I think it's a topic that we don't really talk much about. And I think that kind of viewer experience in particular, because at the end of the day, no matter how much you spend on advertising, if you're creating an ad is not being seen, there's no impact and ultimate no ROI. So, and I think the viewer experience has always been very central to broadcasters in particular, who are sort of constantly sort of fine tuning the and trying to establish an optimum ad experience. I think that's a very delicate balancing act, because on one hand, you need to maintain a positive user experience with limited disruption. On the other hand, you need to ensure advertisers reach their sort of campaign goals, and you need to ensure you generate sufficient revenue to fuel new investment in premium content. So you've been doing some really interesting stuff in that space recently. So I'm just going to dive in, and could you just give us a little bit of details of what you introduced earlier this year, and what's the proposition?
Yeah, so we took some cues actually from what MCU are doing in the States about just over a year ago actually. So we were looking at what was happening on the Peacock platform, where Peacock are basically launched about 3.5 years ago now, with a reduced ad load and sort of high impact ad formats. So we spent some time in New York. I think it was way back in November last year, and understood that there was kind of a real, there was real value in reducing ad load and delivering high impact ad formats. So we took those principles, I suppose, and that thinking, and at the early part of this year started to experiment in the lab. So this was a closed environment. It was a cohort of around about 1,000 users where we tested. We worked with about 30 brands to test a number of formats. We had about half a dozen formats that we were looking at. Some of which were focused around reduction of ad load, but the other areas were thinking about how we could drive more innovation through the advertising experience, through layers of interactivity, and also sort of laddering in kind of shoppable interactive type formats using QR codes, etc. And it was really, really interesting actually to see the responses that we got. I mean, if going back one step, the rationale for this was twofold: to help potentially drive advertising efficacy, and deliver better impact for clients, but also importantly to make sure that we constantly think about the viewer experience. And I think it's interesting because it's interesting that relatively how little has been done in this space
Yeah.
for many years, right? There's not really that much that's been going on in terms of the advertising break or even the 30-second ad from a
Yeah.
broadcaster perspective, and it really stimulated our thinking when we were seeing what Comcast NBCU had been doing. So so we kicked off that experiment in the lab initially, kind of Jan, Feb,
Mm.
March, with I think we had about 30 advertisers on board.
Okay.
And we had some really, really positive results. And what happened was we basically we honed in on what we thought would be some products that we could then roll out and then we could put into a live environment, as it were.
Mm-hmm. What kind of prompted you to do this? What in terms of timing? Why now? In some ways, and
I
you know.
think there's an opportunity to maybe offer a second tier of advertising experience. It's an
Okay.
opportunity to appeal to a broader cohort of advertisers that might not necessarily be advertising or spending on our streaming platform. And look, part of my job is part of my role is to drive innovation and to drive new thinking, right? So and we got the business behind it. It was helpful that we had the experience from NBCU. So we had our executive board sort of very, very supportive of the principle of doing this.
Mm.
I mean, it's not to say that the advertising experience is broken, because it's not. This is just a way of us potentially appealing to a different cohort of advertisers that are willing to. I mean, let's be really frank, are willing to pay probably a premium, because these are very, very high value, high premium opportunities that won't appeal to every advertiser. But the
Mm.
idea is that there is another tier of opportunity here that we can service. So we took that thinking. We worked with, I think it was around 15, 16 brands to then take it into the live environment, and we tested um, two specific formats. One was really related around um, basically reducing the number of ads within a particular pod or break, which
Yeah.
we called our light
Yeah.
proposition. So ads that ran in breaks no longer than 60 seconds. And then the other format that we looked at was our Solus product, where effectively we basically the proposition was that there was a pre-roll in the first break that was signposted, and kind of like basically took over that break, which was the kind of like the real sort of premium format.
So thank you for that. I reckon, Wes, I think the prime question is, what were the results coming out of the
Yeah,
trial?
so there was, I mean, in the second phase. So what we did was we to test it, we ran QR codes in the stream. So we would frame each advertising experience to the viewer and encourage viewers to engage or interact. There was an opportunity to win. I think it was a gift voucher, £50 gift voucher, and engage with a response to that experience. And we were testing brand affinity, uplift, that kind of thing. We had something like, I think in total, via the QR code, also via email, I think around about 4,000 responses back, which is pretty good
Wow.
for the number of instances that we shared. And we saw that for the light ad format, we saw that prompted recall was up something like 44%.
Ooh.
And brand affinity was up, I think it was 23% within the test group. So there was a very, very positive feeling about the light, so the reduced number of ads in the break. The Solus ad format was huge. So we saw prompted recall had a 73% uplift for those responding, and it was basically up something like 81% for the test group that responded via email. So it was, and then brand affinity was, I think, up overall something like 35% versus the control. So the Solus format was the one that had real impact, because it was effectively effectively a stream takeover.
Brilliant.
So we're really encouraged by the results.
That's yeah. I mean, these are pretty amazing in some ways. I suppose you've shared that with the advertisers and the agencies. How
Yeah.
what has been the response from
So
them?
we had we shared the results about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we've been sharing the headline results with the agencies and the advertisers that are involved. And we're now planning on rolling out these propositions and probably more over the course of early part of next year. And we hope we will hopefully build on these formats, so the kind of like reduced ad load formats, to also think about how we drive greater interactivity, either layering on top of the formats that we've tried with the lower ad loads, or looking at more interactive ads in the round next year. And we're also looking at the various different technology opportunities that are out there that can help support that from a kind of, particularly from a big screen interactivity perspective, because I think that's really the area that we're going to be focused on moving forward. Because over 75% of our views now are coming through big screen or CTV, as some people like to call it. So there is a lot of activity in this space, and I think what advertisers are looking for now is that that more that particularly some advertisers are looking at more performance based and also kind of ROI based indicators. So
Yeah.
all of these things kind of point to that. But as I said, I think we very much see that there's a cohort of advertisers that maybe are more younger skewing and more upmarket
Mhm.
skewing, that are very much willing to kind of like access these types of formats in the future.
Yeah, and try a different format. Ultimately, I think they
Yes,
want to try something new, something a little different, and create an edge in some ways. Do
absolutely.
you, with the I would say with the hybridation, I call it the hybridation of the market, but this move of SVOD in particular, or subscription video on demand, into this hybrid world where they offer subscription but also ad supported VOD experience. How do you see this impacting either the user experience, but also how is this going to evolve, and how does that affect you in some ways as well?
Yeah, I think it's an important question, and maybe one of the other cues for us in terms of looking at this particular area in terms of the advertising experience. I mean, there was some narrative that came from Netflix, I think, earlier on this week around what Netflix are doing in the
Yeah,
advertising space, and how they're looking at a more reduced ad load experience on their platform. And I think it's important to recognise that some of the SVOD players are coming into the market
yeah,
and will be offering different types of formats and different experiences. And I think it's important for broadcasters such as ourselves to kind of be in that space and experimenting, but experimenting based on evidence and proof points and research that we're doing. So I think that's going to be an ongoing process for us over the course of the next 12 months, is to continue to sense check what we do with our audience, get the feedback from our audience. And I think what's been really pleasing to see is that the level of response and interaction we've had from our audience that are willing to engage and tell us what they think. And I think it plays well
mm,
to, as I say, not just the commercial teams within Channel 4, but also our product and editorial teams that welcome this kind of activity, because ultimately we want to keep our viewers, consumers on our platform for longer.
yeah,
We want the advertising experience to be seamless and to be acceptable and hopefully enjoyable. And I think our viewers understand that there's a trade-off. We're a free to air platform, and we very much stand by the free to air proposition and principle.
yeah.
Um, but if we can improve the advertising experience, improve the viewing experience, then all the boats rise, so to speak. So it's a kind of win-win sort of scenario for us. So this will be a continued area of focus for us, I would say, over the course of the next 12 months.
Very good. So I think you need to create, and you skew towards sort of younger audiences as well, so it lends itself to sort of a new sort of creative as well. So that's great. So I think we'll follow very closely what you've done, and what the results are, and what's going to happen in the future, and maybe we'll talk again maybe in a few months' time, or towards the end of next year, and see how that has progressed and what the sort of the results are. I think that'd be fascinating. Jon, I usually end my podcast. We're reaching the end of our conversation, but I always ask my guests a sort of a more sort of personal question about something they really care about. But you did something rather extraordinary, I think, recently, and I thought if you might want to briefly share what you achieved.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I don't know if it was extraordinary, but yeah, myself and 4 others decided to swim the English Channel in September for charity for Stand Up to Cancer, which is a regular event in the Channel 4 calendar, which supports cancer research. So we have a big event, a series of shows that launched fairly recently, and as part of that, we chose to swim the English Channel, which is a 23-mile swim. There was 5 of us. It took us 12 and a half hours to do, and we were training for a year. It was one of the hardest, most difficult, most terrifying things I've ever done. Swimming in the dark at 11 o'clock at night from Dover, and then arriving at Cap Gris-Nez the next lunchtime. All the team were amazing. We raised around £70,000 for cancer research, which was fantastic.
Yeah,
and we got a lot of support from the industry, which I am truly grateful for. But I won't be doing that again, Manu. I'll say that much.
I wonder why. Yeah. Did you actually swim 23, or is actually more? Because you never do on the straight line.
It's a little bit more because you move with the currents and the tides. But yeah, we're very. It's a very privileged thing to do, because it's quite hard to find a slot to get on a boat and achieve it. And also, there's not many. Well, there's a lot of people that fail as many complete it, because it is quite a challenging thing to do, and it's all reliant. You're all reliant on each other to do their bit. So yeah, full credits to the team and the people that are involved that helped us along the way.
That's I think that's absolutely amazing. I think we underestimate how difficult it is to actually swim in the sea when you're in the middle of that, of that part of the channel. So
with the jellyfish and all the other stuff that's floating around in the English Channel. So yeah, it was not to be repeated, but I'm glad we did it.
Was definitely worth sharing. So well done to you and the rest of the team. I think this is truly an incredible achievement, and all for a good cause as well, which is very inspiring. So thank you for sharing, Jon.
Thanks, Manu.
That's it for today. Thank you ever so much, Jon. Thank you again. Thank you also for all our Media Talk listeners. Thank you.
Very much. Bye-bye. Bye.
Media Talks, the podcast that helps to better understand the world of media and video advertising.